The portal season is in full swing. It's everywhere you look. There's transfer portal talk, transfer portal talk, transfer portal talk. We are hitting the ground running here after the portal opened on Monday. And let's answer some of the biggest questions. What does Pitt need in the transfer portal? What positions do they need to address the most? What are the absolute necessities out of the portal? And where are some of the luxury areas they might be able to fill in as an added bonus? What does Pitt need from the transfer portal? And why am I wearing this sweet hat? I have answers to all those questions and more on today's Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, this hat. I'm pretty excited about this hat. I don't know if you can check this out. See that thing? This is pretty sweet. This is brand new. Just got this from our friends at BackshoreApparel.com. I've talked to you about BackshoreApparel.com before, and for good reason. For one thing, Mike, the guy who runs Backshore, is a huge Pitt fan. That's a big part of it. He's a big fan of the podcast and Panther-Lair.com and all of those things. But he started this company making basically beach tech. Is what it is. They make hats and shirts and hoodies, but the hat is I'm really excited about this. It's high quality. It fits really well. It's buoyant. It's breathable. It's durable. It's quick dry. Really lightweight and wicking. And as you can see, this is a pretty sweet color. It's got the Backshore logo right there. Backshore logo on the side as well. And this color, if you go on BackshoreApparel.com, is actually called Hail. Yeah, because Mike's a big Pitt fan, right? And so this is probably this is a pretty good approximation of Pitt adjacent colors. Let's call it that, because you don't want to get sued for copyrights, right? Or infringements or anything like that. But I mean, these hats are excellent. Go check out BackshoreApparel.com. This hat is really comfortable. I'm excited. I mean, it's really comfortable, and I like wearing it right now. I'm going to be really excited to wear it once we get into the into the spring and summer. But I mean, I'll wear it right now. Actually, I'll wear it in the winter because it's just that good of a hat. It's really comfortable. I like how it looks. And I think if you're going to watch this hat for the next 20 minutes. And by the end of these 20 minutes, you're going to be like, I need to go check this out. Go to BackshoreApparel.com and check out all their stuff, but especially the Hail hats. HAIL is the name of this hat. BackshoreApparel.com. Go check it out. And you like to support Pitt fans, right? Well, Mike is a great Pitt fan, a big-time Pitt fan, and he's done and he's starting a new project. And so you can go support him at BackshoreApparel.com. What we ask you to do to support the podcast, of course, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and head over and check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards where we write a lot of articles that we put on the front page of the site, but we also post a lot of stuff on the message boards, and it's content that you're not going to find anywhere else. It really is premium content for people who subscribe to the site. I've had a lot of things on the offensive coordinator search and more, so you want to go check it out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And a lot of the conversation, of course, on Panther-Lair.com is about the transfer portal right now. What is Pitt doing in the transfer portal? Who is Pitt losing to the transfer portal? And quite frankly, we've spent a lot of time this week talking about who they're losing to the transfer portal, who they haven't lost to the transfer portal. But the reality is, the transfer portal, is about acquisition, right? I mean, you're going to lose some guys to the portal, and maybe there'll be guys you don't want to lose. Maybe there'll be guys that are just looking for better opportunities for playing time. Whatever the case may be, and you're trying to retain your roster. It's not just about acquisition. It's about retention and making sure you don't lose too many of your key guys to the portal. But what the transfer portal has allowed you to do as a college football coach and a college football program, and for as much as we all sit around and bemoan it, and free agency, and players are just moving, and they're jumping from school to school, and all this stuff, the reality is it gives you a chance to sort of address some needs immediately, with immediate help, with players who have been in college football for a year or 2 years or 3 years or more. And guys who have experience playing the game. They've been in a college strength and conditioning program. They've learned college offenses or college defenses. They've learned how to play in those college offenses or college defenses. They've learned how to play against those college offenses or defenses. And so you have a chance to bring in a guy who can help you right now. And so if you have an immediate need, you don't, in almost every position, you don't want to address an immediate need with your recruiting class. You don't want to have a high school guy come in and step in as your starting left tackle in all but the rarest of instances. But if you need a left tackle, you might be able to go out and find a guy who's got 2 or 3 or 4 years of college experience. And that's the kind of guy you want filling in your spot at left tackle. Now, Pitt's got Branson Taylor coming back. They've got Ryan Baer coming back. I don't think they necessarily need a left tackle in the portal this year, but they do have some spots they do need to fill in the transfer portal. And they do have some spots that they need to address where they're going to need starters and they're going to need depth. And really, I think there's 3 main spots that they're going to have to fill in from the portal. And then one other that we're going to talk about as well here on this portal podcast presented by Backshore. Let's start up front, all right, with the defensive line, because Pitt needs defensive linemen out of the portal. Really, really needs defensive linemen out of the portal, particularly defensive tackle, but defensive end as well. And these were positions that I think a week ago I would have said to you, Pitt needs defensive linemen out of the portal. And then they lost DeAndre Jules and they lost Sam Okunlola. And they're not the only guys. Nate Temple also left. But losing Jules and Okunlola, those are 2 starters. Those are guys who are penciled in to be starters in 2024. They're among your most productive defensive linemen in 2023, expected to hold similar roles next season. And now they're both gone. And that leaves you really, really short at both defensive end and defensive tackle. Now consider the roster, the returning roster as it stands right now. And this is on, Wednesday. We recorded this before the Pitt basketball game last night because I didn't want to be recording the Morning Pitt at like midnight last night after the game. So, there may have been more transfer, hopefully no more transfer portal departures, between the time we recorded this and when you're watching it here on Thursday. But Pitt's defensive end group, as it's currently slated to come back, is Deion Hayes, who announced he's returning. Bam Brima, who will be presumably a 6th-year senior. He hasn't announced what he's going to do. Nikai Johnson, who will be a redshirt junior. Jimmy Scott, who will be a redshirt sophomore. And Antonio Kamen and Maverick Gracio, who will be redshirt freshmen. If you look at last year, this past season, 2023, Deion Hayes, good season, led the team in pressures according to Pro Football Focus, had 4 sacks, was second on the team behind Okunlola and Shane Simon, who had 5 each. Brima started some games, didn't really produce much. Nikai Johnson played a little bit, didn't really show much in his playing time. Jimmy Scott showed some promise, you know what I mean? He looked promising for the future in his limited snaps, but again, it was limited. And Kamen and Gracio never saw the field. So you've got Deion Hayes, and I'm not sure what else in terms of proving commodities. And that's what you're relying on, in addition to a few recruits coming in with the 2024 recruiting class. Primarily Zach Crothers and Sincere Edwards. Ty Uhas from Central Catholic could be a defensive end, could be a defensive tackle, and they might need him at tackle just to be able to have a scout team. And that's not disrespectful to Ty Uhas. I'm assuming he's going to redshirt. They're going to need him. They're going to need guys at tackle, because the numbers, if you thought defensive end sounded rough, they're even worse at defensive tackle. After DeAndre Jules left and the 3 super seniors, Devin Danielson and Tyler Bentley and David Green, left, Pitt has currently on its returning defensive tackle roster Elliott Donald, Sean Fitzsimmons, and Isaiah Neal on the scholarship roster. There's a couple, I think there's 1 or 2 walk-ons out there, and they might have to play, because that's it. Donald, Fitzsimmons, Neal. Now, they're bringing in 2 really good freshman defensive tackles, Sear Whittington and Francis Brew. I think those guys are both going to be really good. I think Brew is coming in January. Whittington is coming in June, so he won't have the added benefit of spring camp. But, Brew, you would think, unless they add a lot from the transfer portal, Brew is probably going to play, having had that extra experience in spring camp. Now, I think they're going to need to bring in a lot from the transfer portal. And we, as we've tracked portal offers, we've kind of found 3 defensive tackles who have claimed offers from Pitt in the transfer portal, 1 defensive end, but I got to imagine that those numbers will grow at both spots, because they really do need to fill out the defensive tackle position with transfers. I don't see any other option right now. You can't go into next year with your 4-man rotation at defensive tackle being Elliott Donald and Sean Fitzsimmons and Isaiah Neal and one of the freshmen. That's not good enough. I mean, first of all, you really need to feel comfortable with your 3 deep at each spot because you're going to have injuries. You're going to have players miss snaps and miss time and miss games. And, right now they're projected to have 5 scholarship defensive tackles, 6 if Ty Uhas moves to tackle. They need help. They need experienced help. They need veteran help, and they need somebody who's going to come in and play this year and help them. And I think you'll see more defensive tackles get offers in the transfer portal because that is a major area of need. And this is one way that it can be used. You know what I mean? You can use the portal not just to poach a star player from another team, not just to lose all your guys, but to fill in those gaps, fill in those holes. And you can think about other transfers they brought in. Stefano Millen, remember, came in from Kent State and was a perfectly good left tackle for one season for 2018 and did a great job. Filling in like that. And I know I talked a lot in the last couple of days about bringing in young transfers, redshirt freshmen, sophomores, that kind of thing, guys who have 2 or 3 or 4 years of eligibility remaining. And I do think that's a good move because then those guys are pretty much locked in and they can't transfer again. So that's big. But I think in a situation like this at defensive tackle, you need somebody who's ready to play now. Got to be a 3rd year, 4th year player because you just don't have much and you need to fill it out. I think cornerback is another spot, and we've talked about this one as much as any. I think cornerback is another spot where they could use a transfer. MJ Devonshire hasn't announced yet what he's going to do, but we expect him to leave. Marquez Williams and AJ Woods are gone, and that's pretty much the entirety of your experience at corner. Rylan Gandy played a bit last year, saw his snaps kind of go up as the season went on. And you'll have him back. You'll have Rashad Battle and Javonte Royal, Noah Bigelow, Gandy, Tamarian Crumpley, and Shadarian Harrison, all from the 2023 roster. I think they're all corners. Some of these guys move around and play different spots, but I think they're all corners, and they'll all be back as far as we know. But you have really little to no experience among that group. Battle has played some, but he got hurt all last year, and he got hurt in 2022 as well. So he really, his playing time has been limited. Javonte Royal, we'll see what he can really do. I mean, we haven't seen him on the field hardly at all, and he's now a 5th year player. Bigelow and Gandy and Crumpley, these guys, sporadic snaps here and there, but not a whole lot. Shadarian Harrison was one of the low-key best players in the 2023 recruiting class. He ended up redshirting and didn't get on the field. I could see them using him next season if he's really as talented as they thought he was when he was coming out of high school as a recruit. If he's learned and developed and played well, I could see him being a part of it, but I could really see, and they're bringing in 3 defensive backs in the recruiting class. Some might be safeties, some might be corners. They move those guys around, but I could really see them going out and finding a veteran corner to fill out that rotation. I think it's important. Not that they can't just go with the young guys they have and go with the players that they've got, but it seems to me you'd like at least one guy to come in and step into the starting lineup. So, when you look at what they need defensively out of the portal, lots of tackles, some ends, maybe 1 corner. They're okay at safety, and I think they'll be all right at linebacker. They're going to be a little thin. They're going to be a little light on experience, but you do have Solomon DeShields coming back. You've got Bass and Lovelace who played a decent amount last year. Kyle Lewis who played a decent amount last year. And last year, I mean, this past season, this past fall. And then Rasheem Biles coming up. He'll be a sophomore. And they're bringing in a couple of, I think 3 linebackers in this class. Davin Bruton, who has had a great senior season in New Jersey. Cam Lindsey, who we all know from Aliquippa, and Jeremiah Marcelin, linebacker prospect from Florida, who seemed like he was bouncing around. It seemed like he might be a tough one to hold on to, but since he committed over the summer. But he seems like he's sticking. So I think that's a good crop of linebackers. I think it'll fill in nicely behind Bass and Lovelace and Biles and DeShields and Lewis. So I think they're okay there. I think they're okay at safety. I think they've got the numbers and the experience that they need. They just need a corner and a bunch of defensive linemen. On the other side of the ball, I don't think the needs are quite as severe. We've seen them offer, I think, 3 offensive linemen out of the portal. I think 7 wide receivers. And to me, those are both luxury positions. And not to say that, boy, they're just set with a bunch of Biletnikoff winners and the best offensive linemen in the country. What I'm saying is that I think they're okay with what they have at those spots. I think they've got decent talent at receiver. I think if they can stay healthy, they'll have decent talent on the offensive line. But I think it's just sort of a permanent thing. I think every year, if you can find a good, talented, proven wide receiver in the portal, I think it's worth kicking the tires. And that's a good spot where, particularly given what Pitt has this year and what they're going to need this year, I think wide receiver is a good spot to try and go find that Konate Mumfield type of guy who had a really good freshman year, and you can bring him in and have him for 2 or 3 years and he can't transfer again. I think that's a position that you really want to kind of highlight there of getting that younger transfer, particularly when you don't need one right now. And if they go into 2024 where their top group of receivers is Mumfield and Dejon Reynolds and Kenny Johnson with Lamar Seymour and Zion Fowler and Izzy Polk behind him, I think that'd be fine. I think that'd be perfectly good wide receiving core. And if they end up adding somebody out of the portal who can supplement that group, that'd be great. Offensive line, I don't think they necessarily need to press for a starter. But if you can get young depth, like Jackson Brown, who came in last year, he's a redshirt freshman. I mean, like that's ideal because now you've got him. He is part of your team, and he's not going to transfer anywhere for like 3 years until he graduates. So that's a great scene or a great setup. And I think that's the kind of thing you want to look for again this year, is finding that kind of a player. And also, I think offensive line and wide receiver are positions where even if you don't need one, if you can get a good one, you get them and you bring them in an upgrade. And they compete for a starting job. They either win it or they push the guys who do win it, and you give yourself a chance to upgrade. And I think that's the position Pitt's in right now with wide receiver and offensive line. Now we save the best for last. And this is a question we've gone back and forth about. It's something we've discussed. And actually on the message boards, I've kind of been pretty definitive about this in the last couple of days, the last week or two. I think we did a Morning Pitt episode a couple of weeks ago of, does Pitt need a transfer quarterback? Or more importantly, did Nate Yarnell's play in the last couple of games change your opinion about whether or not Pitt needs a transfer quarterback? Was the Duke game a chance for Nate Yarnell to secure his position and prove that Pitt doesn't need a transfer quarterback? I think the answer is they're going to try and get a transfer quarterback. And I don't think it's any of these guys that we've seen like connected to Pitt. Pitt has talked to or reached out to. I don't think they're seriously pursuing the Holy Cross quarterback. I don't think Kyle McCord from Ohio State is a legitimate target for Pitt. But I do think they will get a transfer quarterback, and I think they will find a quarterback in the portal to come in and at the very least compete with Nate Yarnell and Christian Veilleux for the starting job in the spring. Veilleux is here. Veilleux can't transfer. Veilleux already transferred once. Nate Yarnell has a transfer available to him. If he loses the starting job in the spring to a potential transfer or to Veilleux, he might decide to move on, which is part of the reason you want to sort of shore up that depth there and bring in a guy who could potentially be an upgrade. I do think they'll do that. I think that'll be the goal, is to find an upgrade at quarterback, or at least someone who gives you a chance for an upgrade at quarterback. So taken all together, what does Pitt need out of the portal? What is Pitt going to try to get out of the portal? I think they're going to try and get some defensive linemen. They need defensive linemen. I think they'll try to get a cornerback. I think they need a cornerback. I think they'll kick the tires on talented wide receivers and offensive linemen, particularly young guys that they could have around for a little while. And then I think they'll get a quarterback. Those will be not necessarily in that order. I think those will be the priorities in the transfer portal this offseason. And I think we'll see that continuing to happen. I mean, signing day is 2 weeks from yesterday. So you're going to see, I think, a lot of movement, a lot of activity, a lot of urgency with trying to get these portal guys, trying to get their interest, and trying to get them on campus for visits between now and Wednesday the 20th. And really, the visit period ends the weekend before the 20th. So you're even on a shorter timeline than that. You're looking at like 9 days from now or 10 days from now. It's going to be a madhouse. It's going to be wild, and I think Pitt's coaches and recruiting staff are working overtime trying to stay on top of all of this, which good luck, because I haven't found anybody yet who's able to stay on top of all of this. But that's what I think Pitt needs in the portal. That's what I think they're going to try and get in the portal. We'll see what they end up actually pulling off. The more guys you get now, the better chance you have of getting them on campus in January so they can start classes and participate in spring ball, which would be ideal, of course, for guys that you're going to be relying on. All right, that's what I think Pitt needs in the portal. That's what I think Pitt will try and get in the portal. I'd like to hear your thoughts. You can go in the comments here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You can post on the message boards or social media, anything. We always like to have those conversations. So do all of that and make sure you like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. Thanks for watching today. We appreciate it. We made it all the way, we're almost to the end of the week. We'll have a lot of stuff to talk about for sure tomorrow in the mailbag. So if you're on Panther-Lair.com, go submit your questions on the Between Fifth and Forbes message board. That way you can join the conversation during the mailbag on Friday and tomorrow. Tomorrow's Morning Pitt. So thanks for watching these videos all week. We appreciate it. Hope you have a great Thursday, and I will talk to you tomorrow on the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.